Cheaters is the 22nd episode of the 5th season of The Golden Girls. This is directed by Terry Hughes, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. I don't actually have too much to say about this one. I certainly didn't dislike it. It's just not necessarily a personal favourite, and there's not a lot to go over, but I do have a couple of thoughts. It starts off with Rose saying that she had a dream about Charlie Brown and Schroeder, and she asks Dorothy what it could mean, and Dorothy says, Peanuts envy, which I have to say I absolutely loved. And whenever I watch Peanuts now, that's going to be in my head, so I had a lot of fun with that. And Blanche points out that Glen O'Brien called, and Glen O'Brien is somebody Dorothy spent some time with 4 years ago, even though he was a married man. And we'll come back to that in a moment. Sophia and Blanche are out shopping. They find a wallet with a load of money in it. There's this random man there as well. And they decide that if it's not claimed within a certain time, they get to keep the money. I feel like that wasn't the best way to look at it anyway, but they don't know who should keep hold of the money in the meantime, so they ask a nun, thinking a nun will be honest and come up with a good solution. And the nun comes up with a solution, and they go off to the bank, and, well, I'll come back to that in a second as well. But I think it was really obvious what was happening. I feel like it was very, very obvious. And it's confirmed in a couple of minutes, but I'll come back to that. Dorothy is then meeting up with Glen. He's played by Jerry Orbach. And he's now divorced. He's no longer married. He is divorced now. And they end up going to bed together. Which I feel like Dorothy wasn't actually willing. I don't feel like she was actually giving consent. It was more like, I don't want to say she was being dragged to the bedroom, but he was kind of leading her when she really didn't want to do it. So I think he could have been a bit more in tune with how she was responding. But either way, they go off to the bedroom. Back at the house, we learn it's established that the man Blanche and Sophia met tricked them, and he took the money. And then Rose points out that it wasn't even a real nun. As part of her job, she looks into these kinds of scams, and it was a setup that they both did together. And yeah, I think it's an eye-opening moment. So anybody watching it, if they're in a similar situation, I think there are some good lessons there for things to look out for. So credit to them for doing that. I thought that was really good. Glen is then coming over to the house with Dorothy. He's really excited to meet Sophia to see what Dorothy might look like in 30 years' time. To which Dorothy responds, only if you lock me in the dryer. Just before they go into the house, Glen asks Dorothy to marry him, which is stupid, because they haven't seen each other in 4 years, and they've just got back together. That's not when you ask somebody to marry you. That's just absolutely ridiculous. And to me, that's a red flag. That is a big red flag that he's not taking this seriously. Of course, one could argue he'd been pining for Dorothy for the last 4 years, and she's his true love, but I don't believe any of that at all. And they go into the house, and Sophia quizzes him, but it's a pleasant enough atmosphere. They get along well. There are no real issues with any of the communication between the characters. And Dorothy tells Blanche and Rose that he asked her to marry him, and for the bulk of the rest of the episode, she's thinking about this. She doesn't know what to do. She's worried she's too old to make a mistake. As Sophia points out, you're never too old to make a mistake. Obviously, she and Blanche made a mistake with the money, with the wallet that they found. And then Dorothy goes to visit Glen again, and while they're there, he gets a phone call from his wife, his now ex-wife, and he happens to say, I'm alone, so she could talk freely. And Dorothy realised that that's what he used to say when they were together and he was cheating on his wife with her, which isn't a good look for Dorothy either. And I think in that moment she realised if he cheated with his wife, or on his wife with her rather, he could cheat again, and maybe he's not an honest person, and maybe at the very least she needs more time to think about this, which I think is sensible. Personally, I think she should walk away, because if somebody is willing to cheat on their partner to be with you, they're going to be willing to cheat on you to be with somebody else. That's not to say cheaters don't deserve second chances. That's not to say that cheaters can't change their ways. But at the same time, there are many, many, many stories of people who cheat on somebody, get with the other person, and then ultimately cheat on them. So I think Dorothy was right to, at the very least, give it more time. But I think she really needed to just walk away from Glen completely. It's not as if they'd been in contact with each other. I don't think he's her one true love. I don't think she'll lose out on much if she just draws a line under the sand. It's not a bad episode. I think there are some good messages here, both in terms of looking out for scams. I think that's always something really fantastic to highlight. And also, if you are the Dorothy in this situation, first of all, don't be with somebody who's cheating on their partner to be with you. There's no point, because they're not a good person. At least in that moment, they're not a good person. So why would you want to be with them? But ultimately, if somebody does randomly ask you to marry them after 4 years of being apart, don't jump in and say yes. Give it some more time to see how you really feel. So, some good takeaways. Not too funny for the bulk of the episode, but we do have some really good moments with Rose and Sophia. Rose and her peanuts envy, as Dorothy put it, I thought was rather delightful. So, not a bad episode, all things considered. It may not be my favourite, but Cheaters is still a decent episode of The Golden Girls with some pretty brilliant moments.